For your power is a mount, reaching high into the clouds. Do you abide by laws? Do you write your laws? Do you abide by laws? Do you write yours? Get up, get up, get up, get up, just get your love on. Get up, get up, get up, get up, just get your love on. Get up, get up, get up, get up, just get your love on. Get up, get up, get up, get up, just get your love on. Things are mad, mad. To build up walls, shatter pride. Things are mad, 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 mad. Build up walls, shatter pride. Do you abide by laws? Do you write your laws? Do you abide by laws? Do you write yours? Get up, get up, get up, get up, just get your love on. Get up, get up, get up, get up, just get your love on. Get up, get up, get up, get up, just get your love on. Get up, get up, get up, just get your love on.
Be the anomaly, the aberration, the glitch, the inconvenient, the divergent, the string of junk code, the stubborn apple that falls nowhere near the tree or the forest. Be the fool, the bonehead, the idiot in the room. Let them shake their groupthink heads at you. Let them be ashamed of you, embarrassed of you, pissed off at you. They will call you names, and you must let them. Let them jeer, let them point, let them laugh. Be resistant to their mockery. Be the fodder for their jokes. Be a magnificent failure in their eyes. A tiger does not lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. Go ahead, be the scar tissue of their worldview, their normality. They will loathe you. They will fear you. They'll wish they were you.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Icke.
Thank you. Whoa. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey. Thank you very much. Thank you. Whoa. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's like the comedian Peter Kay said, you know, don't peak too early like your dad, you know, said to me. So I've got to follow that for the next 10 hours. Thank you very much. That's great. Well, it's great to be back at Wembley. Isn't it amazing to say back at Wembley when you were a nutter 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago? And there'll be some media people here who come with the impression that I still am. But we're going to talk about that which is beyond the norm, which, of course, will challenge much of the mainstream media, if not all of it. And we're going to talk about awakening. And what is awakening? Awakening is realizing that we've been living a fake self-identity and sussing the nature of the true self-identity. And through the day, there's going to be one heck of a lot of challenging information, because we need to know what we face with before we can do anything about it. But I don't want people to freeze or think, oh, it's hopeless, what can we do? Because in our true state, in our awakened state, we have the power to change anything. We have got into this situation by realizing or not realizing the power we have, by not realizing the true nature of who we are. And we can and we will paint another picture in this generations and generations to come. We will paint another picture. Because that other picture is just a change of perception of self and reality. I am love, you are love, we are infinite consciousness, eternal, all that has been, ever can be. That is as bad as it can get. But from that, I am love. Yeah. You are love. Yeah. We are infinite consciousness. Yeah. The next question comes, what the bloody hell happened? What happened? How did infinite awareness get so confused that it becomes entrapped in this? Quick, honey, he's just said on the news that Osama bin Laden has reincarnated and he's dropping Ebola from a flying saucer. Quick, honey. What will Simon Cowell think? How did we get here? Well, it's a big story and it's a long story, but it's a story that if we know it, we can get out of this nonsense. How do we get into a situation, infinite awareness, all that is, has been, ever can be, where in some supermarkets in America, they put up 3 hands to tell you that's what 15 means at the checkout? How do we get there? And then there's this guy. How do we become ruled by people who say wind is a finite resource and harnessing it would slow down the winds down, which would cause the temperature to go up? Someone voted for him. And then we have a president of the United States for which it would be quite right to say, I would challenge you to a battle of wits, but I see you are unarmed. I mean, I get the feeling in me water that there's something not quite right here, that this can happen. What's gone on? If ignorance is bliss, there must be shitloads of people in paradise. But ignorance is bliss, but only for a while, until they knock on your door and ask for your papers. This is a great line. Mark Twain, never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. And we've all bloody been there. You have the right to remain stupid. Everything you do not know can and will be used against you, most likely for profit. You can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And that's the whole point of today. A nation of sheep will soon have a government of wolves. And when you look around the world, that is what we have overwhelmingly, virtually everywhere. So how do we go from this to this? Like I say, it's a fantastic story, it's a long story, and an amazing story. And we went there because what we call stupid equals asleep. What we call asleep is hypnotized, and what we call hypnotized is unconscious. We have been systematically put into a state of unconsciousness so that we cannot see what we are part of and what we are experiencing, though that is changing and changing fast. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. All the time, the subconscious, which we're not aware of, is dictating the behavior and responses of the conscious. And if we don't understand the unconscious, then the conscious will just be a pawn in a game it doesn't understand. Ignorance. The most violent element of society is ignorance. Ignorance is the key to everything because everything comes from ignorance. What we will challenge, what we will accept, what we will respond to, what we will ignore, all comes from ignorance. What we will support and what we won't. And the idea from cradle to grave is to keep us in that state of ignorance. State schooling is stage one. Actually, it's stage two. Parents putting their programming onto their children before school is stage one if their parents are in that state of mind. But this is the first major program. State schooling decoded. It seems so complex, but all it means is that we're here to program your perceptions throughout your formative years so the state controls your mind for the rest of your life. End of story. And we call it education and learning about the world. No, it's learning about the world that in power wishes us to believe in. And here we go from school and we go into this free society. I'm free, I can do what I like. Go to work, get married, have children, act normal, walk on the pavement, watch TV, obey the law, save for your old age, then repeat after me, I am free. And we keep having to say we're free, and in America they keep having to tell the people they're free every 5 minutes because they might otherwise suss that they're not. Slavery was never abolished. It was only extended to include everyone. And yet people go so out of their way to convince themselves they're not in a state of slavery. This is slavery. But this could be an office where you have to be every morning at 9 o'clock. Otherwise you don't earn the money to survive another month. I mean, spot the bloody difference. Apart from the fact the chickens can't go home at night and watch Simon Bloody Cow, I don't see a lot. Slavery, it works better when you don't tell them. Because then you get no response to the fact that they're slaves because they don't think they are. First stage of disconnecting from slavery, realize you're in a state of slavery. Then you know what to disconnect from. This is great, George Carlin. Oh, you hate your job? Why do you say so? There's a support group for that. It's called Everybody, and they meet at the bar. And that's not true of everybody, but the vast majority of people every morning around the world get up out of bed, if they have one, and go to do something they'd really rather not do, but they got to pay the rent, so they got to do it. They're pissing on us, and we say it's raining. No, we're free. We're free. I've got to vote every 4 years. To vote for different masks on the same face. It's ever so free. Leonardo da Vinci. There are 3 classes of people. Those who see when they are shown, those who do not see. And this system we call life is designed, again from cradle to grave, to make sure as many people do not see. And that's what I call the perception deception. Call my last book Perception Deception. I can't think of 2 words together that sum up our situation more than that. Because when there's a few controlling the many, you can't do it physically. You can do it physically in a small area. You can't do it physically across the world. You have to program the perception of the people so that they see the world the way that suits you. And from perception, again, comes everything. What I will challenge, what I will support, all of it. What I will see as good, bad, moral, immoral, all of it comes from perception, the point of perception. And that is the stadium on which the control of humanity is played out minute by minute. And it's even in their own quotes. These are 3 major CIA people. William Casey, CIA director, We'll know when our disinformation program is complete, when everything the American public believes is false. The CIA owns everyone of any significance in the major media. William Coley, CIA director. Deception is a state of mind and the mind of the state. James Angleton, infamous CIA operative. It's all a mind game. And if we don't fall for it, we don't fall into the trap of seeing that we are slaves while thinking we're free. And here he is, the personification of frickin' evil. Decade after decade after decade after decade. If he went to jail for his crimes against humanity, they would have to throw the key mid-Atlantic, not worth keeping it, and he would have to reincarnate many times to complete the frickin' sentence. It's not a matter of what is true that counts, but what is perceived to be true. Exactly. And if we believe official sources, we are believing what they want to perceive us to be true. And they don't, oh, it's gone off. It'll go on in a minute. They don't call it television programming for nothing. Television programming. Fear Ebola, fear ISIS, fear today, fear tomorrow, fear each other, fear Russia, fear for your kids, fear climate change, fear, 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 fear. Fear everything and then give us your power so we can save you from what we've manipulated you to fear. It's going on day after day after day across the great spectrum of society. It tells you what to wear, what to eat, what to think, what to love, what to fear, who to ridicule, who to condemn. And it makes stupid people famous. What is that? What is it? I mean, what is it? You know, my mother always used to get words wrong. She talked about defective inspectors and snatcher dispel. Satcher Distel for anyone younger than me. And she'd look at that, she'd say, hey up, Dave, she's twerping. Yes, mother, because she's a frickin' twerp. George Orwell, 1984. Football, beer, and above all gambling filled up the horizon of their minds. To keep them in control was not difficult. And note that, if you watch sport in this country, he wrote that all that time ago, 1948 that book came out. Above all gambling. The television sport coverage is awash with gambling. Who's that bloke? Ray Winston? Have a bang on that? Nah. I'm a man of the people, me. So lose your money? Nah. God, what bollocks we put up with. Imagine if everyone was this passionate about things that actually matter. What a world we would live in. Ah, jeez. I love football, but Mike, it's a game. They're kicking a bag of wind about. Some very skillfully, some not very skillfully, but it's a bag of frickin' wind. It's a game. They sell us our dreams to keep us asleep. They tell us what success is, so we pursue their version of success, which is more things and more things and more things. You are feeling sleepy. Just watch the watch and live your life as we tell you to live it. And all this together is what the great cosmologist and thinker Carl Sagan called the bamboozle. One of the saddest lessons of history is this. If we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Almost never. But we're frickin' going to. But that's what it is. It's a bamboozle. It's a mind program. And this state of being, this state of denial, is absolutely crucial to it. This is cognitive dissonance. This is a definition of it. Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they're presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It would create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect the core belief, they will rationalize ignore and even deny anything that doesn't fit in with the core belief. And that's why people that stand out and say things that are different to the norm invariably get attacked, ridiculed, condemned, and all the rest of it, because you're challenging so many. Oh my God, how many core beliefs are going to be challenged today? My goodness me, getting the Guinness Book of Records for the day's out. Mark Twain, it's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. Why? Because they don't, understandably, want to realize they've been fooled. But it's a wonderful thing to realize you've been fooled. It's a great gift, because from that point you will not be fooled any longer. It's a wonderful gift. People are embarrassed by it. This is another fundamental aspect of the bamboozle. It's called Stockholm Syndrome, a psychological phenomenon in which hostages express empathy and have positive feelings towards their captors, sometimes to the point of defending them. And this scene from the first Matrix movie captured the Stockholm Syndrome so perfectly. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. And so you have people in uniform who are part of what people term the 99%, actually probably 99.9 if you really get to it, and yet they're defending the 1% or the 0.1% from the rest. As Plato said, ancient Greek philosopher, those who are able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses, because the program is so strong. But we are starting to break it up. And so throughout history, the lights have been destroyed and dismissed with by the candles all the way through history. And decades, sometimes hundreds of years later, people look back and they go, they killed him, but he were right, wouldn't he? And what do? The same thing in their time frame as they did to them, just in a different way. And they think they're different. Jonathan Swift, when a true genius appears, you can know him by this sign, that all the dunces are in confederacy against him. And that's because anyone who is any way enlightened is seeing through the program, and that which is still controlled by the program will therefore be in confederacy against him or her. And this great man, Giordano Bruno, died at the stake, thanks to the Roman Catholic Church, in 1600, for saying things that all this time later we know to be true. It is proof of a base and low mind for one to wish to think with the masses or the majority, merely because the majority is the majority. Truth does not change because it is or is not believed by a majority of the people. Great, great quote. So true. When you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. Why? Because history shows us that invariably the majority are always following a cul-de-sac or a dead end. Mahatma Gandhi, many people, especially ignorant people, want to punish you for speaking the truth, for being correct, for being you. Never apologize for being correct or being years ahead of your time. If you're right and you know it, speak your mind, speak your mind. Even if you are in a minority of one, the truth is still the truth. And I would suggest that in our reality, this is the truth. We live in a freaking lunatic asylum. All right? Now imagine that you are born into a madhouse. You grow up in the madhouse. Your parents are from the madhouse. Your teachers are from the madhouse. Your scientists and your academics are from the madhouse. Your doctors are from the madhouse. All of them. The journalists are from the madhouse. Doesn't necessarily need to scan very, very far for that, does it? But what then happens is someone who's not grown up in that situation comes along and says, this is a freaking madhouse. But to you, the madhouse is normal because it's all you've ever known. And thus, to you, someone saying the madhouse is mad is themselves mad. It's one of the great examples of human inversion, this inverted society. And as this man said, brilliant, birds born in a cage think flying is an illness. What you've been brought up with is your normal, however bloody mad it may be. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And that sums up the madhouse. That sums up the madhouse. People who have become well adjusted to a profoundly sick society to the point where they think it's normal. And who runs the institutions of this world? People like that, because of the system that puts them there. It's great. An idiot is a genius to another idiot, because that's their perception of what a genius is. So, let's look at this madhouse and what is considered normal. We kill people who kill people because killing people is wrong. I mean, I was that high, and I always said to me, Dad, we're still hanging people in Britain then. They're like, oh, what are they hanging them for? They say killing's wrong. What are they doing? Couldn't work it out. It's madness. Oh, no, an eye for an eye. Yeah, it makes the whole world blind. Yeah, gotcha. Here you go. I heard you throw bombs on people who throw bombs at you because you are throwing bombs at them, so they will stop throwing bombs at you. Just wanted to ask how it was working so far. Wow. Jeez. Here we go, a bit of madness. Numbers of people murdered by governments from 1900 to 1999 alone, 262 million. That's the only ones I know about. What it took to develop this fighter jet would have given every homeless person in the US a $600,000 home. Always money for war, not for peace and people. And there's a reason for that, which we'll come to later. $1,735 billion spent on war in 2012. It would take an estimated $175 billion a year to eradicate poverty. Some say a bit more, but certainly not even close to that. Why? Inversion. It's not something that's a crisis that's natural. It's a scam. There is no need for one single person on this planet to be hungry and to be homeless. No reason whatsoever. It's there because it's made to be there for all the reasons I'm going to explain today. And here we go. Here's a bit of madness. No, it's sanity. It's sanity. What we do is we put poison on the food and then we frickin' eat it. And that's considered sane. And you get these people, they say, what do you mean organic food's better than the food with poison on it? That's crazy. What? That's what they say. Don't dance then. And then we borrow money that doesn't exist called credit and then pay interest on it. And we give all the things that are worth anything to the bankers for lending us money that doesn't exist called credit. Hey, it's a crazy world. No, it's not. It's not sane. And this is all going on now. This is all going on more and more day after day. Well, you've got to protect us from terrorists. The people putting them up are the terrorists. Think while it's still legal. Now, people might think that's a bit of a joke. It's not. No. Psychiatrists now say nonconformity is a mental illness. Only the sheeple are sane. They've got a name for it. They've always got a name. Oppositional defiant disorder. What? Apparently I'm a terminal case. For which I'm delighted. Now, pulling this all together, what we're looking at is what I call bubble people. Bubble people. They live in a bubble of perception and reject anything outside of that perception. Thus, they stay in the bubble. And so all these institutions are programming beliefs and perceptions in the bubble. And unless you break out of it, they're the only perceptions you ever come across. I mean, I love this one. experts. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we have an expert with us. And normally what follows after, and here's an expert, is a clueless prat. That's what I find myself. Clueless at what they're talking about. Scientists talking about reality when they haven't got a clue what reality is. So, and then the arrogance of the bubble. Because the bubble thinks that anything outside its bubble has got to be crazy and must not be believed, and you must ridicule those that are outside the bubble. They can't be credible, they'd be inside the bubble with me. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance, said Einstein. And my goodness me, this reality is awash with it. Here's a wonderful example. Professor Richard Dawkins at Oxford University, who ridicules and attacks anything that's kind of different, and the arrogance of ignorance. Do you know something that's absolutely unquestionable? There's no doubt whatsoever, cannot be challenged. We don't know everything. At any point, we think we know up to a point, but there's always more, vast more to know. The arrogance of ignorance says, I know what I need to know already. And that's what they say to you. Look, mate, I live in... Oh, you've had that, haven't you? Look, mate, I live in the real world, me. All right, I've got that real world. Go to work, get married, have children, get normal. I am free. That's the real world they're talking about. The real world of human slavery masquerading as freedom. Wisdom tends to grow in proportion to one's awareness of one's own ignorance. Crucial. Or as Socrates said in ancient Greece, wisdom is knowing how little we know. And that opens the mind to all possibility, knowing that whatever we know, it's a fraction of what there is to know. What if all you ever knew was a lie? What if all we ever knew was a lie? That's extraordinary when you see the tidal wave of information that comes at us by the day. Well, William Casey, CIA director, will know when our disinformation program is complete, when everything that Americans believe is false. Their goal is that everything we believe is a lie, and they're bloody close. Truth is truth even if no one believes it. A lie is a lie even if everyone believes it. Truth doesn't look at numbers, it looks at what is. And I love that line. You see that on news programs. They're talking about a story. They'll say, well, what we know is, and then they'll cut to tell you what the government has put out in a statement. That's what we know. No, that's what they bloody said. And what we know, well, what do we know at any point? Until 1929, scientists thought there was only one galaxy in the universe, the Milky Way. Today, they estimate minimum 100 billion. I've seen figures twice that, 3 times that, in estimates by other people. From 1 in 1929. And at that point, they would have said, what we know is, first step to awakening to true self, we know shit. From that starting point, we got a chance of knowing more than shit. Re-examine all you have been told. Dismiss what insults your soul, and that includes every word I say today if it insults your soul. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. I love the way he sings that, Bob Marley. None but ourselves can free our minds. So true. It's our mind. Only we can free it. And people think about enlightenment as it's some kind of, trotting down country lanes with violins and little butterflies flying around with beautiful colors. Actually, it is this, brilliantly set out. Make no mistake about it, enlightenment is a destructive process. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's seeing through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we imagine to be true. Blank sheet of paper, starting again. What goes on that blank sheet of paper has now got to convince me. And I don't care if you got letters after your bloody name or letters before your name. I couldn't give a damn. I'm deciding my sense of reality, not the system. And John Lennon said, the more real you get, the more unreal the world gets. Why? Because the more real, awakened you become, the more you see the madhouse. And it's been going on for centuries. This is Leonardo da Vinci. I awoke only to see that the rest of the world was still asleep. But only when you awaken do you see the world's asleep, because you were asleep with all of them before. This is what we need to transform human reality. We need the end of bloody normal. This is a great line. Normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work and driving through the traffic in a car you're still paying for. In order to get to the job, you need to pay for the clothes and the car and the house you leave vacant all day so you can afford to live in it. Brilliant. And when one person suffers from delusions, we call it mental illness. When a society suffers from them, we call it normal. Because who decides normal? That which controls the information within the society. There you go. I've just been called normal. I've never been so insulted. Here, do you know they've said I'm not normal? I can't bloody believe it. Someone told me the other day. Icke is mad. He's not normal. You know my response to that? My response has always been, thank bloody God for that, right? What a relief. A world that's insane thinks I'm mad. Thank you, God. Phew. History shows us that the people who end up changing the world are always nuts until they're right, and then they're geniuses. History is alive with it. As I said in a book years ago, today's mighty oak is just yesterday's nut that held its ground, long enough for perceptions to change. Can you remember who you were before the world told you what you should be? Can any of us remember that? When we're born into a world and from day one we're told who we are, what we should do, what reality is, what we should aspire to, what we should oppose, all of it. Just a program. You know, this is my space. I'll decide what comes into it. And I don't care if you're a parent or a school teacher or a bloody politician, a scientist, an academic. I decide what comes into my space and my reality, not you. And when we do that, we can start to change. If you sense more, there is more. Yes. It's people get stuck in the mode of thinking. And when we feel something, what does it feel? You can say, well, it feels right. It shouldn't, but it does. This is the true self. This is the program self. Know the truth by the way it feels. And that's all I can say today. Because my goodness me, there's so much information coming. But know it by how it feels. And let it run, even if you're incredibly skeptical, which you have every right to be. Let it run and let's see the pieces go and then make a decision at the end. But how does it feel? Not how does it perceive from my belief system. Awaken, awaken, awaken. Awaken from the program. And what's the first stage of that? The very first stage. Leonardo da Vinci had it. All great acts of genius began with the same consideration. Do not be constrained by your present reality. Because if we're constrained by a present reality, we're going, yeah, truth, academic school, work, yes, death, I'm out of here now. I'm going round and round and round and round. That's all you can do unless you cease to be constrained by your reality and break out of that circle and look elsewhere. When you can see through the illusion, you are the solution. Because then the illusion ceases to have power over you and your perception of self and reality. Is this real life or is this fantasy? It is fantasy because it's all an illusion on a scale that we would beg a belief if we didn't see the evidence to back it up. But this is crucial. I'm going to be talking as the day goes on about how this world's manipulated and to what end. Deep, deep, deep in the rabbit hole. And when I started on this journey, it was a very lonely place. There were very few people walking on it anywhere in the world. Long time ago, 25 years. And there are now very large numbers of people, fantastic, great, wonderful, putting this information out about the manipulation, but on certain levels. I would just say to them that we're never going to, A, find the true nature of what's happening, or the answer to bringing it to an end, unless we appreciate the nature of reality itself. Because at the inner core of those who are manipulating this world, they understand what reality is and thus how to manipulate it, while they keep us in ignorance of that same information. Illusion comes from illusio, ludere, to play, to mock. And it plays and it mocks with us if we don't realize it's an illusion. And of course, it's all real. Consider that you see less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum and hear less than 1% of the acoustic spectrum. As you read this, you are traveling at 220 kilometers a second across the galaxy. 90% of your cells in your body carry their own microbial DNA and are not you. The atoms in your body are 99.9999% empty. I say 100% personally. Space, and none of them are the ones you were born with. Human beings have 46 chromosomes, 2 less than a potato. The existence of the rainbow depends on the conical photoreceptors in your eyes. To animals without cones, the rainbows do not exist. So you don't just look at a rainbow, you create it. This is pretty amazing, especially considering that all the beautiful colors you see represent less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. And then there's this. Every second, 11 million sensations crackle along the brain pathways. The brain is confronted with an alarming array of images, sounds, and smells, which it rigorously filters down until it's left with a manageable list of around 40 from 11 million. Thus, 40 sensations per second make up what we perceive as reality. Okay, we have an expert. What we know is shit. Then we can get somewhere. And think on this. All the institutions that run this world and dictate its direction and dictate its sense of reality are all founded on the fact that this world is not an illusion, that it's really bloody solid, and all that quantum physics and the rest of it is irrelevant. And thus, bollocks begets bollocks. That's one of my laws, that. Bollocks begets bollocks. If you hit a piece of glass in the center with a hammer, it doesn't just smack where it hits. It goes off, distortions, inversions in every direction. And if the very basis that you found society on is a fundamental misunderstanding of reality itself, then that flaw, that fundamental flaw, must infest every area of human life. No wonder it's a bloody madhouse. Here you go. The bamboozle, establishment, science, education, media. Just sticking its head up its arse, thinking it knows it all. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a persistent one. Albert Einstein. And there's a reason why it's persistent. I would suggest, after 25 years of putting this together, we live in a virtual reality universe. And is that really so hard to imagine anymore? When you see the scale of reality that we see in these video games and stuff now, and movies, where it looks increasingly like the very reality that we're decoding. Even faces, people are looking more and more like each other in virtual reality. This one. And they're now using virtual reality in burns units to change the dressings because the reality being piped to the eyes takes over, hijacks the brain's perception to the point where it doesn't feel the pain as it would normally. When you look at virtual reality in its developed sense, its more developed sense, they've got the gloves on, they've got the goggles on. And all that is doing is hacking in to the way the body decodes reality anyway. Hacking in to the 5 senses. Technologically, going to be very, very significant as we go through section 2 today. And it can be so incredibly real. And all it is a fake reality being fed to us technologically. And it's an interactive, wireless cosmos that we are experiencing. You know, when you go out with a computer and they've got this Wi-Fi stuff every bloody where now. You're sitting in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a town, wherever, and you sit there, and from the unseen, you are downloading or decoding onto that computer an entire global reality that can be picked up anywhere in the world that it's available. A wireless internet, and I call it the wireless cosmos, and the brain is massively part of the decoding system of this wireless cosmos. This is a projection or a simulation, if you like, of what Wi-Fi looks like in the unseen. And it's just information in an energetic form. And the computer tunes into that, decodes it onto the screen as the internet. We do not have empty space between us. We have energy. We have electromagnetic energy. And we have, in that energy, information. And from that, what I call the biological computer decodes that information into a sense of reality that we think is solid, but simply cannot be. I'll go deeper into this as we go through here. The base form of our reality is waveform, energetic waveform, which can carry extraordinary amounts of information. I call it the metaphysical universe. It's the universe from which this one that we see, or think we do, comes. So, you have the information field, the cosmic internet, if you like, and we decode it through from that, through the digital, I'll get into all this as we go along, through to what is an illusion of physicality called holographic. I'll come to that quite shortly. And now we have mainstream scientists saying this reality could be just a hologram, exactly what it is. And the most dense of things, rocks, mountains, however kind of they may be indestructible, they are at their base form an energetic information field. The more dense the energy, the lower the frequency, the denser and more solid the form appears to be. And Nikola Tesla, the genius from which so much came, one of the great scientific geniuses of modern times, who in effect gave us the electrical system. He gave us radar because it was stolen from him. And he could see beyond the physical that we perceive. And he said, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of our existence. Why? Because you go to the source of the reality instead of the decoded expression of that reality. You go to the source, not the expression of the source. So we live in this cosmic internet. On one level, it operates on an electromagnetic level. Of course, the brain is working electrically as it interacts with it. And the reason that animals can be so sensitive to things that humans can't be, because they read the newspapers and watch Simon Cowell, but is because they have not gone through this system of programming. So they are naturally sensitive to these information fields and can pick up changes in it, which is why animals can feel earthquakes coming before they come. So what is the internet? People say, well, it's like pictures and text and colors on a screen. Well, yes, it is, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, it's electronic circuits and all that gadgetry. What is television? Well, it's pictures on a screen. Yes, it is, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, television, in the analog sense, is frequency fields or the electrical kit that they do now with digital. And our body-mind, the body-mind as I call it, is like a computer system which allows us to experience this reality. And that is just like sitting in an office. The person at the desk that can see the big picture is consciousness beyond the program, consciousness beyond mind, consciousness beyond the reality that we perceive, and that is experiencing the reality we perceive. If you cut that from that and isolate that in and of itself, which is what the program's designed to do, you detach people from their true self and their true perception of self. That's the thinker, the brain, the thinker, working it out. That's the knower. And if you detach the thinker from the knower, then the thinker is left helpless to have its thinking programmed by that which has been responsible for the disconnection of the isolation. So, if you program that level of self that's directly experiencing this reality, body-mind, with all this programming, you disconnect it from this, and that's how infinite consciousness can become an idiot. The brain is not who we are. It is a processor of information and a communicator of information. As this man rightly said, looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking inside a radio for the announcer. The radio is just decoding information. That's what the brain body is doing. We are conscious in a very narrow band we call conscious. That's what we perceive and think we're awake. But beyond that is the unconscious, the subconscious, which goes on and on into infinity. And the idea is to isolate the conscious from the greater self. So what we are in this reality is simply a point of attention, which the body focuses into a tiny range of frequencies we call the world. I'll get into that in a second. A point of attention. But if we get caught in the program, that point of attention is so focused on here that we lose connection with the greater self and all the other insight, knowledge, awareness that is open to us when we connect with it. Not some guy in a spaceship, our greater self, our greater consciousness. Consciousness is, what I call consciousness, is like the ocean. Whereas mind is the same substance, but it is far more limited. Like ice is the same substance as water, but it's in a completely different and more limited state. And if we get caught in that and disconnected from that, big trouble. And when you look at the oceans, they say it's the South China Sea, they say it's the South Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, the North Atlantic, same bloody water. Same water. But what we do is we give our water, our infinite self, names, like Ethel Jones and Arthur Smith. And we give them identities without realizing that we are just points of attention within one infinite, eternal consciousness. We are like the white waves in an ocean. They look different to the rest of the ocean, but they're just a different expression of the ocean. This is a fantastic picture. This sums up humanity. We are expressing our point of attention as a uniqueness, which is wonderful. A unique personality, a unique person, a unique perspective, a unique point of attention. But at that time, we are connected to all the other points of attention in infinite awareness, which in the end are all us, and they are and we are all them. And so, when we go to war, we go to conflict, we are fighting ourselves. You hit yourself around the head with a baseball bat, they put you away. But we're doing that all the time because we've got caught in the illusion of the fact that we have space, empty space between us, and we're all individual to the point where we're not connected. The ocean is the droplet is the ocean. Drop the droplet in the ocean. Where does the droplet end and the ocean start? The idea of the conspiracy is to keep that droplet disconnected from the ocean. And when they do that, we have the world that we live in. Great line, Leonard Cohen. If you don't become the ocean, you'll be seasick all your life. And so many people feel this ache, this sense of disconnection, this sense of longing that they can't put words to, because one part of them, one level of them knows that we're all one. Everything is all one. Leonardo da Vinci learned how to see, realize that everything connects to everything else. It's an ocean. We are a point of attention, but we are the ocean. My God, that's what we are. We're the freaking ocean of infinite consciousness. What a job they've done to persuade us we're Ethel from the store. Near-death experiences have experienced this. So often, the common themes of what they say is incredible. How they leave the body and suddenly past, present, and future are all happening at the same time, in the same moment. How they have multiple levels of awareness at the same time. In the body, they had one level of awareness because the body focuses us in these frequencies, locks us in like a computer. From one of my books, the fear of death comes from the ignorance of life. There is no death. There's just a removal from the vehicle into consciousness, in awareness of itself again. But you get people frightened of death and they'll give their power away to doctors and chemo freaking therapy and all of it because they want to stay alive because they fear death. There is no death. There's just a change of point of attention. That's all it is. Point of attention, point of attention. I'm terrified. If people say to me, don't you frighten, they'll kill you. Well, so they kill me, all right? I leave the body and I go, oh God, I'm terrified. Oh my goodness, it's such a nightmare becoming all that is, has been, and never can be, in full awareness of itself. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it really is, infinite. This guy was, from the 18th century, William Blake. I mean, this is universal knowledge through history. So we have a visible universe, that which we can see and bring into some kind of form, and we have an invisible universe, which is everything else. And the visible universe is so tiny, it is funny. This is mainstream science. They talk about dark energy, dark matter. I see that slightly differently, but the principle's the same, what you can see and what you can't see. So you have this massive area of stuff they say exists in this universe, which we can't see. You then have light, electromagnetic spectrum, etc., which is 0.005% of what they say exists in this universe. And visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can decode into a visual reality, is a fraction of the 0.005%. We have an expert. What we know is, what? Madness. So this is the visible spectrum within the electromagnetic spectrum. Look at it, it's tiny. And that's all that we can see in what we call the world. You say to most people, can you see everything in the space you're looking at? Oh yeah, mate. You can't see that much of it. So we are in a frequency band. We call it the world, we call it reality, but there are other frequency bands interpenetrating this one, like radio stations and television stations, sharing the same space. And what you perceive is what you can decode, what you are decoding. And so through the body we perceive in a visual sense what the body can decode, which is this little band of frequencies. You go outside the body, now you're perceiving much greater frequencies, and thus your reality changes. If you wish to understand the universe, said Tesla, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Exactly. So, our point of attention holds us in this reality unless we're open to consciousness. Because what happens is if you come into this reality, this visible light reality, and you hold that connection to consciousness beyond this reality, you have everything you need. You have the information coming through the senses to give you a fix on what's happening around you, but you have the big picture that's outside of this reality, that's not programmed by its perceptions and its sense of limitation, which can then feed you insight, inspiration, intuition, to give you insight beyond that which you are directly experiencing. But you get disconnected from that, big problem. You're now trying to get your entire fix on reality from the reality you are in. And if a network controls that reality and that information that's coming at you, they are going to program your sense of reality for life. What time is Simon Cowell? All that stuff. So, most people, and it is changing, hallelujah, brother and sister, but it's still the vast majority are caught in the program which they think is real and they think is all there is to see. And so in this world, there are people in the program who are only getting that sense of reality, and then there are people who've opened their minds and opened their hearts, come to that big time, who are accessing another sense of reality, and these people call these people mad and crazy and dangerous. Yes, they are. They're dangerous to the prevailing program. So what is the universe? It is information. And what is the universe? It is information decoding information. When you put a disk in a computer, it's information. The computer is information. It decodes the information. One part of information is encoded to be decoded. One information source is encoded to decode. And that's exactly how our reality works, except the body is decoding and also encoding. So we have what I call the body computer, a biological computer. Biological in the sense that instead of like a desktop computer, you put information in and you press enter, and as programmed it responds. A biological computer has the ability to assess information and make decisions about it, which is what the immune system is doing all the time, 24/7, without any input from us. So the reason that they're able now to connect the brain directly to computers is because they're connecting two computers, one fantastically more advanced than the other, but still basically two computers. And form is in formation. Our base state is awareness. Doesn't have form, it's just awareness. But we come into the realms of form, and form is created from information. And so if you look at the body, it's just like a computer in its basic sense. You know, when the computer don't work anymore, won't switch on, what do you say? My computer's dead. It goes into sleep mode to save energy. It has an antivirus system. That's our immune system. Best antivirus system ever. The brain is the central processing unit. And then you have DNA, which is basically the hard drive. And the senses are decoding systems, decoding information into a form that the brain can decode. So the senses are taking waveform information, vibrational information, they're turning into electrical information, they are communicating it to the brain, which then decodes that into a sense of reality we call the world we live in. So the world that we think we're living in exists there. And worth thinking on this. If you can manipulate the sense of reality of that and the way that decodes that information, you are dictating the experienced reality of the target population. And that's what's happening all the time. And when we realize that, we can stop it happening, which is the whole point of me doing it and standing here, really. So you look at the motherboard of the body. That is the system of meridian lines of energy used in acupuncture, which take information around the body. You know, when information is passing around the computer too slowly, things start to malfunction. And what do we say? My computer's so slow today. Yes, because the information is not passing around at optimum level. When the information is not passing around these chakra systems and meridian line systems, then the computer malfunctions. We call it dis-ease, disharmony. And so what acupuncture is doing, okay, you know, dogma bloody Dawkins, acupuncture load of rubbish. No, mate, you just don't understand what reality is. Perfectly logical. What the acupuncturist is doing is using these needles and other techniques to make sure the flow of energy, information around the meridian system is optimum. This is why in ancient China they used to pay the acupuncturist when they were well, but not when they were ill, because his job was to make sure they never got ill. Another thing, for people who are skeptical of this stuff, people say, you know, you see this in the media, he's saying you put a needle in your toe and you cure a headache. That's crazy. Well, it's not crazy, it's perfectly logical. If the problem with the head is that one of these meridian lines of information is blocked in the toe that goes through the head, then it's no good putting it in the head if the blockage is not in the head. You put it in the toe and that clears the meridian, which takes away the pain from the head. It's very simple. The brain is dark but sees light. How is that possible? How can my brain be totally dark and I see this light? Because that light in its prime form, like everything else, is just an information source. And I'm decoding that information source in here into the visual reality of light, because that's what the information contains. Thus, that's what it manifests when I decode it. A real great open-minded man, you might call him some kind of mystic kind of man, the late Alan Watts. He really kind of had a lot of good things to say. And he said this: without the brain, the world is devoid of light, heat, weight, solidity, motion, space, time, or any other imaginable feature. All these phenomena are interactions of transactions of vibrations with a certain arrangement of neurons. We have an expert. What we know is, so this is right. There is no spoon. It's not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself. Because that spoon only exists in that form when you decode it from energetic information. People say it can't be done. I've seen it done. People walking across fantastically hot coals that should burn their feet off. But it doesn't. Why? Because if they go through the coals with the perception, here we go again, that they'll get burned because that perception will lead to the decoding of the perception. Call an ambulance. But when you go into another level of consciousness that is not decoding reality like that, you walk through coals and not get burnt, because an illusion can only burn an illusion if you think it's real. God, this world is so fantastic, and we live such a fraction of it. Information is encoded in what we call light. White light contains all the colors of the spectrum. Isaac Newton called the rainbow a spectrum because out of the Latin word for apparition or phantom, that's where we get the word spectre from. And colors are frequencies. Illusion, colors are frequencies. They're just different frequencies, and when we decode them, we see that color. And we think those flowers are red and yellow. They're not. Nothing has any color. The color is decided in our perception of it by whether it reflects certain frequencies or whether it absorbs certain frequencies. We're only seeing light that reflects. Thus, we're only seeing that color which is reflected by the object. Therefore, it seems to be that color. This is the scale of the illusion that we think is real. And even, some of these various things that you come across in science, hydrogen and carbon and nitrogen, you break them down on one level and
they look like barcodes because this is a virtual reality universe. And light radiation is information, and the frequency or wavelength vibration is its delivery system. The information dictates the frequency. So, I'm delivering information. I love you, and I mean it. That's the frequency. I hate you, and I mean it. That's the frequency. And thus, the information is being delivered, and as it's being delivered, it travels through light on a particular frequency relating to its nature. And so, the more hate we put out into the world, the more hateful world we have as we interact with the virtual reality universe, because we post information and we receive information. And this is why music, vibration, has such an impact upon us. Oh, God, I'm opening my heart sings to that music. Oh, shut that bloody stuff off, it's horrible. It depends whether we're syncing with the frequency or whether we're not. This is why chants are so used and dance, which creates vibration, by Native Americans and people of the East and others, because they understand that you can impact upon reality by impacting upon the frequency of the space that you're dealing with. And this is really, I think, one of those whoa moments. As the frequency increases, the amount of energy carried by the wave also increases in proportion to the frequency. So, when you open your mind and open your heart, your frequency goes up. Provable fact, measurable. As your frequency goes up, you're now being able to hold and access more and more and more information. And thus you become more aware, more knowledgeable, more insightful, more intuitive. And what the system wants is to push us down the other way, so we watch Simon Cowell. So what we're doing is decoding information into this reality. This reality is a shared reality, but it's a decoded reality. And it's operating in our heads, decoding information. And how we decode it depends upon our perceptions of reality. So this Matrix scene is absolutely spot on. This isn't real. What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, taste, and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. Now, you manipulate the way the brain interprets those signals, gotcha. And that's what's happening. And bollocks begets bollocks. Because once you are operating in a society that doesn't take in the very nature of reality, you're in a flawed society all the way through. Now, this is an example of how information is carried by everything and how we impact upon information as we interact with this virtual reality universe. Sad to say, I'm sure he's not sad where he is now, but I'm sad that he's gone. Dr. Emoto, the great man from Japan, who I co-wrote a book with in Japanese some years ago. I didn't write Japanese, he did. But he unfortunately left us a few days ago, and I'd just like to mark that point by saying what a fantastic contribution he made in his work to the understanding of the nature of reality. Because what he did was he took water, put it into little containers, and he would apply to that water sounds or words, and then he would freeze it very quickly. I've been to his place in Tokyo where he did it. And then he would photograph the water crystals in that water. And the difference in the crystals corresponding with what the water came into contact with is absolutely fantastic. This water had love and thanks written on the side of it. Beautiful. Geometrically beautiful. Harmony, natural order. This had hate, I want to kill you, on it. Look at it. And people say, well, how does that work when you put words on water and that happens? Simple. The words written are merely the holographic expression of waveform information. So those words are vibrating to a certain frequency. We see them holographically, but they're vibrating to a certain frequency. And that frequency impacts itself upon the water, and when you freeze it and photograph it, you see the impact. I'm speaking now. People think I'm speaking words. I'm not really speaking words. I am creating information fields with my vocal cords, and between me and you, there is no words. The words only come when you decode the information field that I'm sending out, and vice versa when you speak to me, when anyone speaks to anybody. It's all frequency. And so, love and appreciation. You make me sick, I want to kill you. Heavy metal music. This is why this can have a massively detrimental impact on people, because we are energy fields. Let's look at the auric field, it's photographable. And if it's a vibe that can impact negatively or disruptively, distortedly upon your energy field, you can have mental and emotional and what we call physical expressions as the hologram is affected. This is polluted river water. Look at it. That's what it does. Because water in its base form is an information, waveform information field, like everything else. At the Aerospace Institute in Stuttgart, Germany, they've developed a way of photographing information in water droplets. You go on the internet or YouTube and put those words in, water has memory. I'm sure it's still there. You'll be able to see the video. And so what they did is they put a flower in a big tank of water. Then they took the flower out, and then they photographed droplets from the tank. And in each droplet was the flower. That's a mock-up, obviously, it doesn't look like that, but you could see the flower information in the droplet. They then asked people from the local community to come in, and they had a big tank of water, and they asked them to take 4 droplets from the big tank and put it into a little dish with their name on. And what they found was that each person who did it, all 4 sets with each person, or all the sets, there were more than 4, were different. But all 4 taken by the individual were basically the same. Why? Because the very action of taking a droplet, putting it in a dish, the energy field of the unique individual was impacted upon the water. This is the impact that we're having on reality all the time while we think we are powerless. And so, when the Dogma Dawkins of this world ridicule homeopathy, they don't know what they're bloody talking about because they don't understand reality. He did say, actually, in one of his books that his knowledge of quantum physics was foggy. Well, that's a great way of understanding reality for a start, isn't it? But what is homeopathy? They say, well, you can't dilute a substance over and over until there's no substance left and say it heals anybody. The flower was taken out of the water. The information was still there. It's the information from the substance that does the healing in homeopathy, not necessarily the substance itself physically. Because they don't understand reality, they can't get that connection. Can you? No. So, what is a computer virus that disrupts a computer system? It's rogue information, and that's what this is. It's rogue information. Pollution at its base wave form is just a distorted energetic information field which distorts that which it comes into contact with, which manifests in the hologram as toxic water and toxic waste. Same with the stuff in sweets and bloody soda things that children eat on a massive scale. Of course, it's going to destabilize them mentally and emotionally because it's distorted information which distorts the workings of the brain. And this is a big one, another one. This is a target too. I'll get that to why it's not why it's a target, but how it's a target later on. The pineal gland in the brain. It's known as the mind's eye, part of this so-called third eye, and it's not so-called, which takes us to other levels of reality and other levels of perception. And René Descartes, the French philosopher and mathematician, talked about the pineal gland being the seat of the soul. It's not the seat of the soul, it's the way we massively interact with this cosmic internet. Interestingly, when you look at the pineal gland, which is a bit like a pine cone, and other parts that relate to it, it's kind of very much like the Eye of Horus or the Eye of Ra in Egyptian belief. And it's so vital to the way that we manipulate, but decode reality and can be manipulated to decode the reality that the system wants. So this is in the Vatican, a pine cone. This is a calcified pineal gland, because what has calcified it? Fluoride in the water. Fluoride in the water calcifies the pineal gland, which is massively important in the way we decode reality. Coincidence? Not a bloody chance. So this pine cone theme has been used in culture after culture to symbolize the pineal gland, because they knew its massive importance, the all-seeing eye on their level of how we decode reality. And people say, well, a little pineal gland, how can you decode a whole reality like that? Well, as I've been telling people for years, size doesn't matter, right? Look at it. You've got this little thing here, you stick it in a computer, and from this little thing, you can pull down an entire global reality called the World Wide Web. And the pineal gland has the same rods and cones found in the eyes are found in the pineal gland, because it is part of this other level of sight. And we think that what's happening is the world is coming this way. It's not. It's not. The world is going that way. We are decoding information, and the projection of what we perceive to be our reality is coming from within us, the other way around. So when we have this universal kind of belief through the ages, where people say, everything is within you, the world is within you. Yes, it is. And the world that we experience is dictated by the world that's within us, our perceptions, our attitudes, our belief systems. This is Anita Moorjani, wrote a book called Dying to Be Me, all about near-death experiences. And she said, I believe that the greatest truths of the universe, she had a near-death experience, don't lie outside in the study of the stars and the planets. They lie deep within us, in the magnificence of our heart, mind, and soul. Until we understand what is within, we can't understand what is without. Because what is without is a projection of what is within. And manipulating what is within to manipulate what we experience apparently without is the whole basis of the conspiracy. So we can decode reality and it can be beautiful. Or we can decode reality and it can be war and conflict. It's our choice based on our perception. And the pineal gland is crystalline. Everything that is involved in this decoding system seems to be crystalline because, of course, crystals are involved in the decoding transmission systems. The membrane of every cell, and we have trillions and trillions of them, tens of trillions of them, is a liquid crystal. And so we are taking reality out of the cosmic internet, which is all around us all the time, just like the wireless internet. DNA is crystalline, and it is a receiver, transmitter of information. Here we go. It's not just the pineal gland. It's not just the brain. This is from an article about DNA. From the characteristic form of this giant molecule, a wound double helix, the DNA represents an ideal electromagnetic antenna. Electromagnetic antenna, exactly what it's decoding. On one hand, it is elongated and thus a blade which can take up very well electrical pulses. On the other hand, seen from above, it has the form of a ring and thus is a very magnetical antenna. And from an article in the San Francisco Chronicle, DNA is a universal software code. From bacteria to humans, the basic instructions for life are written with the same language. It's a software code because we are interacting with a virtual reality universe. And this is DNA, A, G, C, and T. How these substances, these codes, shall we call them, are in relation to each other decides if you're a human or a virus. And now they're actually creating synthetic cells using computers because it's a virtual reality universe. So human is a software program. It's a means of experiencing a particular kind of experience within a particular kind of reality. Men and women, it's a software program. What we are is infinite awareness. All that is, has been, and ever can be. We are men, we are women, we are everything in between. We are everything that exists. It's just a point of attention. And the nature of the vehicle focuses the point of attention. I am a man, I am a woman, I am black, I am white. This is why racism is so freaking insane. Insane. My spacesuit's a different colour to yours. Oh, so what? And these cultures, they're in their way software programs. They're experiences within the greater experience. And this is the underpinner of the software program. The software program should interact with the greater awareness. Overwhelmingly, it's been shut off by this. Hypnotized. All the time. Look at all the means of hypnotizing our reality. And if you hypnotize your reality, your decoding system becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Control perception and you control reality because of that. Control perception by controlling belief. They couldn't care less what you believe as long as you believe it vehemently, because that vehemence, that focus will decode reality in a very limited way because of your belief. Accidents happen, that's what everyone says, but in a quantum universe, there is no such thing as accidents, only possibilities and probabilities fold into existence by perception. So we have infinite possibilities. As we have infinite possibilities on the internet, am I going to that website or that website? There's infinite possibilities, but the perception pulls in certain possibilities that relate to the perception. That's why the programming of perception is the very foundation of the control of human experience. We see things not as they are, but as we are, exactly. And the thing is, program what they are, and we got them. So, from this tiny, tiny band of manipulated frequency, not even free thought frequency, we're deciding who we are, who you are, what we're going to be, what we're going to aspire to, what is and what isn't. And what is awakening? Awakening is awakening from this, from the person, persona, which in Latin comes from the word meaning actor's mask. And that's what the persona is, an actor's mask, a facade that gives us a sense of false self-identity. So, these people being normal. And then you lift the program and we call it awakening. All you're doing is disconnecting your sense of reality and self from the program and seeing what's beyond it. Ever tried having a conversation with someone who had a belief system that is rigid and will not move? Waste of frickin' time. And when you're in that mode, you're like in a maze, but you don't know you're in a maze. You think it's free life and free movement, but you're in a maze and you're being guided down the maze. And then someone gets on top of the maze, looks down and says, "It's a frickin' maze. It's going nowhere. You're mad." Great line this. Those who danced were thought to be quite insane by those who could not hear the music. And those who could not hear the music are because they're in these bubbles and they won't allow the music, the knowledge from greater levels of awareness in, and thus they can't hear it. We have a system that gets people to look at the world like that. And what chance have you got of seeing what is when you're looking at the world like that? Focused on one tiny area of frequency. And all this, this is all us, untapped because of the focus. Thank you. The eyes are useless when the mind is blind. Why? Because the mind is, through its perception, dictating reality. We are all one. That is what they don't want us to suss. Who are we? We are all that is, has been, and ever can be. when people hear that, they say, how is that possible? I will explain in a second. But I had an experience once which took me into other levels of reality. And I experienced this place, point of attention, which was dark but brilliant. Very difficult to describe. Had no sound, had no movement, but it knew all. It was all that is, has been, and ever can be in that stillness and silence. And I read this book about a year or so ago, and I was reading what he said, and I thought, whoa, there you go, I've been there, darling. Ibn Alexander, a neuroscientist who had a massive near-death experience. Before the near-death experience, this was Dogma Dawkins in America, in effect, absolutely the same belief system. Then he had this massive near-death experience, and of course, everything changed. And one of the things he said he experienced was the core, or what he called the dazzling darkness. That is exactly what I experienced years ago. The dazzling darkness from where the purest love emanated and where all was known. Yes, this is the place where all is known, and all comes out of that we call worlds and forms and experience. It's all that is and ever can be. Impossible. You can't be all that is and ever can be. Yes, you can, because that is all possibility waiting to manifest. And in all possibility, it is all possibility. All that is, has been, and ever can be. It's all potential waiting to be made manifest. It is everywhere and nowhere. Can't be everywhere and nowhere. Within all potential and all possibility, you have to be able to be everywhere and nowhere. And everything and nothing. You can't be everything and nothing. You have to be within all possibility. And then we get the nothing, the no thing. People are so caught in the five senses that they believe that if you can't see it, touch it, hear it, and taste it, then it can't exist. If there's no movement, it can't exist. When they're just one or two possibilities pulled out of all possibility. All possibility is stillness and it is silence. This is why you can read all the books you like or whatever you want to do with your voice and whatever. But you go into a state of meditative silence and you get inspiration that you'll get in no way from words, because you're going into that all that is state. And this is Nikola Tesla, a mainstream scientist, yes, in the strict sense, but way beyond that, because he was aware of that which is beyond the so-called physical. My brain is only a receiver. In the universe there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated the secrets of this core, but I know it exists. He's talking about the same thing. So from this all possibility, these worlds are created by thought, by imagination, and they're all illusions in terms of physicality. So, what do you mean the world isn't solid? It certainly bloody looks solid, and we experience it as solid. But it can't be, for a start, because they tell us that this reality is made of atoms. Atoms have no solidity, and thus they cannot a physical solid world make. And as someone said, if you take the nucleus of the atom, it is, in relation to the size of the atom, about the size of a 10-cent piece. All the rest is empty space. And if you go into that deep enough, you'll find that is too. How can that make a solid world? What we call atoms and all these other things they talk about in science is the decoding system. When you put information in a waveform sense into a computer and the computer decodes it, there are certain stages of that decoding before it becomes that on the screen, this world. And science is so focused on the twigs and can't see the forest that it takes every twig in isolation. It doesn't realize it's part of one seamless decoding system. And so we are decoding from the waveform through the digital, I'll get to the digital in a minute, through to the holographic, illusory, physical. all these different levels, molecular and atomic and holographic as it is, and they're all different expressions of the decoding of this world. The world is a hologram. Everything that we see as form is a hologram. There's more to know even about that, but let's keep it at that level for now. And holograms are like, of the ones you buy in the shops, what they do is they get a laser, and the part of the laser goes off. It's a photographic print. Another part of the laser, in waveform, photographs the object, and then hits the part of the laser that came straight onto the film. And that collision creates what they call an interference pattern. What is an interference pattern in a hologram? It's waveform information. Looks like a fingerprint. I don't think it's an accident either. And then, well, what is it? It's just waveform. But then you fire a laser at it, and amazing things happen. And what you are looking at is basically the same principle as dropping 2 stones in a pond, and they start a wave reaction. And as those waves collide, what you're looking at is a waveform portrayal, expression of where the stones fell, how fast they fell, how heavy they were. It's an information field if you know how to read it. And so what happens with the holographic waveform information is when it's read, it becomes an apparently 3-dimensional object. These are all holograms that we're seeing here from these waveform information patterns. And some of them, the best of them, can look as solid as you and me. This lady is a hologram projected from somewhere else. These are all holograms. He's been projected from somewhere else. Les Dawson did a whole bloody program, you might have seen it, the British comedian. Even though he's no longer with us, great man as he was, he did a whole program as a hologram. This lady isn't standing there, but appears to be. And so what we're doing is taking this waveform information, that the cosmic internet, and turning it into a holographic reality. And now, mainstream science is starting to see that this is something they need to explore. You are a hologram projected from the edge of the universe. New Scientist, one of the main scientist magazines in Britain. Scientific American, are you a hologram? Quantum physics says the entire universe might be. And here is a mainstream newspaper report. Russian researchers want to replace your physical body with a holographic avatar. Why and how? Because they're replacing a hologram technologically generated with a hologram biologically generated, but even now they're starting to biologically generate as well. And the wonderful, amazing characteristics of a hologram, which explains so many mysteries, is that every part of a hologram is a smaller version of the whole. So when you get one of those holographic prints of a picture in waveform, and you cut it into 4, and you fire the laser at each one, you don't get a quarter of the picture, you get a quarter-size version of the whole picture. Every part of the hologram is a smaller version of the whole. And that's why you see the human energy field is a smaller version of the planetary energy field. This is where as above, so below comes from. And then you have reflexology and acupuncture and all these things that can find points on the ear and the body and the foot, all over the body, that correspond with other parts of the body. It's because they are holographic and therefore smaller versions of the whole. You might have seen people who've photographed things with their hands, where they've in various experiments that have been done. When I say photograph things, they've seen things with their hand. They've not seen them as clearly as with their eyes, but they've seen them. Now that is possible, although science says it's impossible. It's possible because there are sight senses in the hand, because it's a hologram, therefore all the senses are in the hand, just not as sharp as the main sense, in this case eyes. The palm reading is all part of the hologram because the whole body is in the hand. And this is why the brain cells and the universe mirror each other. So there are scientists over the years who have said that this reality as we experience it only exists when we observe it. I would take that a stage further and say we only see it in this form when we decode it. And the act of observation is the act of decoding. So when they say that waveform suddenly takes a particle form, or they can take the same form at the same time, It's because it's the same information in different forms. And so when you look at this newspaper article, Your Mind Can Control Matter, physicist, atomic particles were shown also to be waves. Whether they manifested as waves or as particles depended on whether someone was looking. Observation influenced the physical reality of particles. In more technical language, observation collapsed the wave function. It decoded the wave function into holographic reality. So when we are not looking at this reality, we're not decoding it, it's just a waveform information field. Same with us. So that's the base form of the body. It is an information field. We decode the body through into this as well. And if you can manipulate the way we decode reality, you can manipulate what we perceive. This is an example I've given many times, but I use it every time because it is so brilliant to explain what I'm trying to say here. There was a guy called Michael Tolbert. He wrote a brilliant book called The Holographic Universe about the scientific evidence for the holographic nature of what we call physical reality. And he told the story in that book of how he had a friend, his father rather, who had a party at his home, and he got a stage hypnotist along to do party tricks. And he got this guy called Tom, and he took him through the various things. And then towards the end, he said, Tom, when I bring you back to a waking state, you're not going to be able to see your daughter in the room. So at that point, he brings the daughter and stands her right in front of Tom. And Tom, the father's looking in her belly. So he brings him back to a waking state, apparently, and he said, Tom, can you see your daughter? Tom's looking around, can't see him. So everyone else in the room could see the daughter. He can't see the daughter. So the hypnotist went round her back, and the small of her back, he held something. He said, Tom, can you see what I'm holding? He said, well, you're holding a watch. Daughter's between him and the watch. He said, there's something on the watch, Tom, can you read it? He leaned forward, he read an inscription on the watch. Now, Dogma Dawkins and everyone else in the mainstream would say that's impossible, perfectly bloody logical. Because the base form of the daughter, like the base form of all of us, is a waveform information field. And if you don't decode that into the holographic reality, your holographic five senses can't see it because it's not in its reality. And so what had happened is the hypnotist had put, if you like firewalls in the decoding system, and the decoding system would not decode the energy field of the daughter. Everything else in the room, yeah, not the daughter. Everyone else could see her because they'd not been through that process. So the only way that he could see his daughter is when that firewall was unlocked and suddenly he's decoding her. Oh, there she is. Now imagine you know all this in great detail and you want to manipulate the global population. What power that gives you. And look at how the same information is there wherever you look with people with an open mind. Tesla, my brain is only a receiver. Central American shaman, we are perceivers, we are awareness, we are not objects, we have no solidity. We are boundless, we, or rather our reason, forget this, and thus we entrap the totality of ourselves in a vicious circle from which we rarely emerge in our lifetime. And the whole focus of the system is make sure we don't emerge. Who creates the universe that we see? We do. And thus, if we change our perceptions, we can change what we decode into a reality, and we can change society. We're not going to do it by stockpiling weapons. We're not even going to do it by mass protests. We're going to be doing it by creating a different reality, by coming from a different perception of what reality is. All that we see or seem is just a dream within a dream. And because everything is one, the dream is the dreamer, and the dreamer is the dream. They're both expressions of each other. And this is a massive way that this is manipulated, the right and left side of the brain. This is mainstream science here. This is not, where I'm coming from alone. Left side of the brain is structure. It's language. It's numbers. It's hierarchy. It's the world that we see. Right side of the brain is inspiration, intuition, creativity. It's the musician. It's the artist. It's the creative in anything. And this is Mercedes-Benz in an advert that was actually emphasizing these two very different functions of different sides of the brain. And what the system does, because it knows that this is where creativity is, this is what connects the dots. Because this sees the tapestry, this sees the strands. If they keep you in the left brain, it's all dots. You get in the right brain, the dots are a picture. That's why they don't want us to connect the dots. That's why they don't want us in the right side of the brain. And so they put the soldiers on the gate of the left side of the brain to stop the right side getting in and having an influence. And what is that? It's doctors, it's journalists. And I'm not saying they know what they're doing this. They don't. They've gone through the system as well. It's scientists, academics in all their forms, and all the rest of it. And if you look at exams in education, what we call education, it's all left side of the brain information, and all the time cutbacks in the arts and things that would open the right side of the brain. I've never made one of my discoveries, said Einstein, through the process of rational thinking. No, through going to another level of awareness beyond the village idiot of rational thinking as we perceive it. Cosmic communication. This is the wireless internet on an electrical level. There's a whole area of science now called the electric universe. Two of the great pioneers and founders are Wallace Thornhill and David Tolbert. This is a brilliant book. It's very difficult to get hold of, explaining how the universe has a electrical level, electromagnetic level. It explains so much. We all realize that there's electricity in the atmosphere because we see lightning. What we don't realize is when something's lightning in the lower atmosphere, there's other electrical things going on right out into the cosmos because it's an electrical system. This is a news story. High-speed solar winds increase lightning strikes on Earth. Scientists have discovered new evidence to suggest that lightning on Earth is triggered not only by cosmic rays from space, but also by energetic particles from the sun. There is an electromagnetic field which connects everything. Electrical tornadoes, they are fast-rotating electromagnetic fields. The northern lights, the aurora borealis, electrical light show. Electrical comets as they interact with the electrical level of the universe. Electrical galaxy, the spinning of the galaxy. And Nikola Tesla said this: all peoples everywhere should have free energy sources. Electric power is everywhere present in unlimited quantities and can drive the world's machinery without the need for coal, oil, and gas. And he knew that. He knew that, and he died penniless in a hotel room in New York in 1943. And who are the forces that are suppressing this knowledge? The very sources that are telling you we must deindustrialize because of global bloody warming. That's a load of bollocks anyway. Scam. Gravity is powerful. Okay, the electrical force is about 1,000 trillion times more powerful than gravity. This is what the magnetic force is capable of. And as the electrical universe postulates, the force that hold the planets in their places and their stability are not gravitational forces, they are electromagnetic forces, which brings about a very simple thing. If you can, or something destabilizes those electromagnetic forces, then the planets go walkabout. And I'll get to this in part 2, but they went walkabout in geological terms very bloody recently. 99.99% of the universe or our reality is plasma. And plasma just happens to be an almost perfect medium for electrical forces. They say in the laboratory, plasma exhibits a lifelike ability to self-organize and cope with the stresses of its electrical environment. Why? Because it's conscious. Everything is conscious. And in the electrical universe arena, they can recapture happenings in the heavens in the laboratory using things like plasma focus devices. Try to get mainstream to replicate what they say happens in the universe and how. Electrical sun, plasma sun, almost entirely plasma, they say. Why? because it is a processor of electrical power, information. Electric sun, I mean, it's not bloody obvious, is it? And they say that what the sun is like a nuclear reactor that starts in the middle and convects out. Well, they say there's a radiative zone. Well, apparently there's very little evidence, if any, for that. And the convective zone they've found is about 1% of it needs to be to do what they say it does. What the electrical universe position says, with tremendous evidence, is that actually it's coming the other way. It's not coming out from the sun, it's coming into the sun, being processed, and then going out from the sun in another form. In ultraviolet light, you have what they call a torus, or like a donut around the sun, well out, and it is a collector of electrical power. And what happens is, as that electrical power builds up, just like lightning is a release of too much electricity in the atmosphere, so there are massive releases of electrical power from this torus, and they head for the sun, and they bang into the sun, create massive holes that we call sunspots. According to the electric universe, sunspots are not going that way and banging outwards, they're coming this way and banging outwards. And here's another kind of thing that supports where the power is really coming from. On the surface of the sun, it's about 5,000 degrees Kelvin, that heat measurement called Kelvin. And in the upper levels of the sun, way out from the surface, it's 200 million degrees. That's the sunspots. And so you have cycles when this electrical power is very, very powerful, and when it's less powerful. And that is what creates the sun cycle, when there's more power coming from the sun and then there's less power. Another great thing that explains another thing is when plasma has a electrical force or electrical state of a certain kind, and it meets plasma with an electrical state of another kind, the plasma automatically creates a barrier between the two. They're called Langmuir sheaths, after Irving Langmuir, who discovered them. And that's why we have these energy fields around planets. And we, in our electromagnetic level, and the planets are interacting with this electrical force, which is delivering, again, information within the cosmic internet. And again, you've got the brain cell and the universe. So this starts to explain this. Astrology. What we call planets and stars are, in their base form, waveform information fields. And as they move through the greater cosmic internet, they are impacting upon it in terms of changed information. They're changing its nature. And when these planets move into certain situations in relation to each other, the impact becomes even greater. And so where the planets are dictates the nature of the energy field. And when we come into this reality, we pick up the energy field at that point in the cycle. And so we pick up a different energy field to someone else. And we interact with the energy field as we go through our life, therefore, in a different way compared with someone else who comes into the cycle at a different point. And that's what we call astrology. And in its deep scientific level, it is a science. Not in the, local newspaper with a little one paragraph, but at its deep level, it is a science. In the right hands, everything in the right hands. And because we live in a hologram, this is a smaller version of the universe, a smaller version of everything we perceive to be above it. Now, time and space are great creators of illusion, and that's what they are, illusions. Far away, we see stars, we say they're billions of light years away. Hold on. In that form, they exist. When we decode them here, they're centimeters away, in effect. And it's just, again, waveform into hologram. Space, illusion. Communicating, they say, particles can communicate billions of miles apart. How? Because the billions of miles are illusion. It's one energy field reacting to itself instantly because it's one energetic field. And when you look at time and space, when you put like a computer game into a computer, all the information is on one disk at the same time, right from the start to the end. But you put it in the computer and that plays that out scene by scene. And as the scenes pass, you perceive that as the passage of time. And as you look at the screen and its depth and its perspective, you see that as space. But all it is information on a disk being decoded into that form by the computer. And it's the same with a DVD. Your perception of time when you're watching a DVD only is dictated by where you are in the DVD. So when you're watching here, your past is there and your future is there. When you're watching there, your past is there, your future is there. And yet it's only dictated by that part of the information field that you are decoding at that time. There is only the now, that which is all. There is no time and space within that dazzling darkness. It's illusion. It's a perception of time that we have. And this is a great line. The present moment is the only moment available to us, and it is the door to all other moments. Why? Because there is only that moment. And the more we get pulled into the future, fear, more we get pulled into the past, regret, we're getting pulled out of the now into some illusory past and future. And what the left brain does is it takes information in that now and it puts it in a sequence. And that sequence appears to us to be the passage of time. We're back to the DVD. Einstein said, when you are courting a nice girl, an hour seems like a second. When you sit on a red hot cinder, a second seems like an hour. That's relativity. Relativity is what? Your perception of how you decode reality. Time doesn't exist, clocks exist. Time is just an agreed upon construct. We have taken distance, one rotation of the earth and one orbit of the sun, and divided it up into segments, then given those segments labels. Why it has its uses, it's been programmed to live our lives by this construct as if it was real. We have confused our sharing construct with something that is tangible, and thus we have become its slave. We have a line that doesn't exist in the ocean. That's tomorrow, that's yesterday. It's not even bloody straight, look at it. And yet time controls ours. This is another newspaper article. Prison of the mind. Prisoners could serve 1,000-year sentence in 8 hours. Future biotechnology could be used to trick a prisoner's mind into thinking they've served a 1,000-year sentence, a group of scientists have said. Why? Because it's all an illusion. University in London has done a study on time and found that when great sports people are playing, they go into another relationship with time where they decode it to be slower than the rest of us do. That's why, we see balls going across a tennis court and you think, how did he get that back? But he's not seeing it in the same speed we are. I experienced this myself when I was in sport on one occasion. And so you have these, people from the so-called past which seem to be ahead of their time, like Da Vinci and Giordano Bruno, and all those things that Da Vinci came up with 500 years before they were shown to work. And people say they were hundreds of years ahead of their time. They weren't. They were beyond time. They were able to access that level of awareness beyond the program, thus beyond time and space, and that's where they got that knowledge. It doesn't matter if it's the Stone Age here or now. If you access that awareness, you can get that inspiration. The power of the heart, love, intuition, and intelligence. We've got this chakra system, this vortex system. This is the key one, the master one, which relates to the physical heart. And throughout history, the heart has been said to be the center of human power, and it is. The Heart Math Institute in the United States has done massive research on the true nature of the heart, both the physical heart and the energetic heart, same thing in the end. It's the body's most powerful electromagnetic field projected from the heart. The brain obeys the heart. More nerves go from the heart to the brain than go the other way. And the heart has brain cells because it is a massive form of intelligence. Thinking intelligence, innate intelligence. Knowing intelligence, thinking intelligence. Programmed intelligence, see through the program intelligence. And this is what they say. There is also new data suggesting that the heart's field is directly involved in the intuitive perception through its coupling to an energetic information field outside the bounds of time and space. And that's why you get intuition that knows far more than this thinks it knows, because you're accessing a much higher level of awareness when you come from that point. Open your heart and connect with all that is. Thinking, knowing. And that's why they want to shut the heart down through fear, through anxiety, through depression, through worry. So we don't use that access to the great forever. The research at the Heart Math Institute says that when the heart, the brain, and the central nervous system are in harmony, the person moves to a higher level of awareness. When they are not in harmony, they have a distorted resonance, incoherence as they call it, then you're not in that higher state of awareness. And this is the heart rhythm of someone in a state of appreciation. This is a heart rhythm in someone in a state of frustration. Coherence, incoherence. And look at the frickin' world. It's structured to constantly put us in states of low vibrational emotion and fear and anxiety and frustration. And in doing so, it takes us out of the true self and into the fake self. Open your heart, change the world. This is a great line from the great Bill Hicks. This is where we are right now as a whole. No one is left out of the loop. We are experiencing a reality based on a thin veneer of lies and illusions. A world where greed is our God and wisdom is a sin. Where division is key and unity is fantasy. Where the ego-driven cleverness of the mind is praised rather than the intelligence of the heart. Absolutely right. So let's quickly go to the digital construct, because I've been talking about going through the waveform, through the digital into the holographic. Numbers are simply expressions of states of waveform information. This is where numerology comes in. When people keep getting the same numbers recurring in their lives, God, not that number again. What's recurring is the same energy information fields. So on one level, it's a waveform. On another level, it's digital. It's numbers. It's why numbers are so important and so important in esoteric lore. And now we've kind of gone full circle. And now they are creating digital holograms, which is getting so close to what we're actually experiencing. It's unbelievable. This is, again, a mainstream article. And they look so real, digital holograms, so real that when Ford focused a digital hologram to show off a car concept model, people stopped, afraid to walk into it. They thought the holographic car was really there. That's the reality we're experiencing. That's a hologram, a digital hologram. And what they've now established is that these ACGT codes of DNA, they can be expressed, as with computer language, as a 1 or 0 on-off electrical charge. In other words, they cross over. And the Fibonacci sequence of numbers, where you add the number before to the next number to get the next number, 1 and 1, 2, 2 and 1, 3, 3 and 2, 5, can be found throughout nature in the way that shells grow, the nature of the form of the human body, all these things, storms, waves on the sea, fingerprints. You find this because we're in a virtual reality universe, and one level of it is digital, so it must express itself like that. Symmetrical mathematics not only shows the nature of mathematics within our reality, it also emphasizes the holographic nature of our reality relating to those mathematics. So, given all that, is the universe a simulation? I've been saying it is for years and years and years. And here we have a mainstream article again. Physicists may have evidence that the universe is a computer simulation. how they made a computer simulation of the universe and it looks sort of like us. And this is from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for anyone that thinks that, that's just kind of fantasy. This is what human science can do now. Biology is fundamentally discrete, based on a sets of nucleic and amino acids combined into genes and proteins. And computers are fundamentally discrete, based on bits of data processed by logic gates. The latter have long been used to study the former, but a range of emerging technologies are now making it possible to directly convert between these representations. Just as analog digital and digital analog converters provide the interface between computers and the physical world of sensors and actuators, biology digital and digital biology converters are allowing computers to create and control biological worlds. They're starting to be able to create biological virtual realities now, or they're on the road to it. What if there's a much greater force? I think there might be, I don't think we're at the cutting edge of knowledge in all that exists, ever has been, personally. What you could be doing in terms of creating a reality. And this is a study at the University of Bonn into whether we live in a simulation. And this is a report. They say that they may have evidence that the universe is a computer simulation. They pointed out in a paper called Constraints on the Universe as a Numerical Simulation that simply being a simulation would create its own laws of physics that would limit possibility. I said in books years ago, the laws of physics that we think are laws of physics here are not universal. They're the laws of physics in the way this reality works. That's all. They're not universal. What are the laws of physics? Click, click, enter. Whatever you bloody make them. Scientists talk about a phenomenon known as the GZK cutoff, which is an apparent boundary for cosmic ray particles caused by the interaction with cosmic background radiation. The University of Bonn paper says that this pattern of constraint mirrors what you would find with a computer simulation. They say that like a prisoner in a pitch black cell, we would not be able to see the walls of our prison. And this is right on the other side of the world. James Gates, an American theological physicist, professor of physics at the University of Maryland and director of the Center of String and Particle Theory. This was reported in Physics World. There may be evidence to show that our reality is a simulation akin to the movie The Matrix. Yes. Gates and his team of researchers discovered equations in the fabric of the universe that contain embedded computer codes of digital data. They take the form of 1 and 0 and 0, the binary system of on-off electrical charges used by computers, and he says we have no idea what they are doing there. I think I can help him. Computers and other electrical technology are embedded with mathematical sequences known as error-correcting codes or block codes, which return data to its original state if something changes or interferes with it during transmission. Gates and his team have found these sequences within the fabric of our reality, but they don't know what they are doing there. They're holding the reality in place for reasons I'll explain in part 2. And what I would say, the biggest blocking code of this reality, this fake reality, as I'll explain after lunch, the speed of light. The speed of light is not the fastest speed, it's pedestrian. How can you have a fastest speed within all possibility? It is the walls of the reality, the fake reality that we've been manipulated to decode, believing it to be real. And they've been talking for centuries and centuries about the fact that this is some kind of enclosed world. And it is. And like a prisoner in a pitch black cell, we may never be able to see the walls of our prison until we wake up. So, put this all together, and we're living a fake identity. We think we're our name, our race, our job, our income bracket, our religion, and our life story. I am whatever the system tells me I am. No, we're not. We are what we are, infinite possibility. Jim Morrison, great quote. The most important freedom is to be who you really are. You trade your reality for a role, a mask. You trade your sense for an act. You give up your ability to feel. In exchange, you put on a mask. There can't be any large-scale revolution until there is a personal revolution. on an individual level. It's got to happen inside first. And so we need to stop living the lie and start living the truth of who we really are. We are infinite awareness. We are not humans. That is our experience. We are infinite awareness having that experience. Infinite possibility. And this is a wonderful quote I've used a few times, but it's so brilliant, from a near-death experiencer. What they experience outside of the body. Everything from the beginning, from my birth, my ancestors, my children, my wife, everything comes together simultaneously. I saw everything about me and about everyone who was around me. I saw everything they were thinking now, what they thought then, what was happening before, what was happening now. There is no time, there is no sequence of events, no such thing as limitation of distance, of period, of place. I could be anywhere I wanted to be simultaneously. That's who we are, and that's what the system is seeking to keep from us, to hold us in this one narrow band of point of attention. And bollocks begets bollocks. That's why the whole of our society is flawed and distorted and inverted, because it's coming from a totally fake position of the reality that we are. Yippee, we know all about the known. No, you know what you've been told. And if you tell the system back what you've been told, you pass exams and you progress within the system. Congratulations. Wisdom is knowing how little we know. And that doesn't mean you believe everything, of course not, but it means your mind is constantly open to all possibility. We are in an intellect prison. We worship the intellect. This is the isolated intellect without consciousness. Village bloody idiot. That's the intellect. It looks at dots and it focuses on dots, but it can't connect them to see the picture. And so, this is why infinite awareness, all that has been, ever can be, has been reduced to this. And the world that we live in has been reduced to that through delusion, the delusion of illusion. And why? We ridicule and we kill and despise those that can see beyond the program. You are the universe, but society teaches limitation. Why? Who's behind the bamboozle? Who benefits from it? Why is this nonsense going on? Be back in 1 hour. Thank you very much. Thank you.